talking here for the Eurogate group. Obviously, might be a little misunderstanding that I'm giving you a business card of MSC Gate. That's my second capacity. I'm running a small container terminal in Bremerhaven, but today I'm here as taking a special task for the board of Eurogate Group to see and discuss with you and share opinions on what you are trying to develop. My opinion basically on the whole subject is that the Eurogate Group, as you might know, together with the Italian arm, is running 11 container terminals in Europe, being the European container terminal leader, I must still admit, against my colleagues of HIT and PSA. So obviously on a worldwide basis we are quite a small one, we're only number 5 in the world, but okay, we can live with that. The points you were mentioning here to standardize or to measure a container terminal within the Eurogate is for each terminal already a standard. And I wonder whether any modern container terminal group could run a container terminal without having this type of information internally already today. Yeah. So obviously we are very interested to understand productivities of land side, water side, terminal, gates, whatsoever. And we do have, and believe me in that one, quite an understanding. What is our productivity there in each and every of our installations? But the point is whether or not, and I'm coming to a more broader view of the whole thing, is whether we, being part of the whole transport chain, are able to really add something new to the information. If I'm looking into it from our perspective point of view, I mean, it's very easy. I mean, you know, it's no rocket design. I mean, you discharge a ship, you load a ship, you deliver a container, you receive a container. I mean, it's nothing fancy. Everybody can do this. It's very easy, and it's nothing very difficult. To organize the whole transport chain, there are usually 2, maybe 4 ports-terminals involved. If you take transshipment, I think it's at least 4, otherwise it's 2. These 2 terminals represent, from a cost point of view, the total transport chain, something between 5 to 8% low cost. So if you want to change anything in the transport chain, why start with the 5 to 8%? If you're looking from a time point of view, I think your remark was quite interesting. We are asked as well, I mean, on a worldwide basis, I mean, can you extend storage times? On the other side, we are talking about things like just-in-time delivery. And I'm not going to give you names, but huge industrial conglomerates are asking for extended storage times. At the same time, they are talking about shorten the transit between producer and factory. I think this does not go together in the way it should. Whether or not a terminal, this little crane mover there in between, is going to change anything in that, I doubt it. So I still like to participate within your group of discussion, as we as Eurogate are always interested to learn, to understand what the industry really wants, needs, and are willing to participate up to a certain degree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm the Managing Director of the Marshall Lloyd Certification and in charge of certification worldwide. And I'd love to introduce the Cool Chain Quality Indicator as a demand for the industry, as a real demand. And it seems to be the case that there's a real demand here as well for developing a standard for container terminals, a benchmark standard. And I like to develop standards which have a real demand, are demand-driven. So that's my motivation to be here.
Yes, my name is Dr. Wyatt. I'm an expert in refrigeration and specialized in reefer containers, and I was heavily involved in the development of the cool chain quality indicator standard. And some of the ideas which were used for the cool chain standard, and which are now also proposed for the container terminal standard, yes, came from me. And since we work very good together on that standard, Bernard asked me to join him here too.
So thanks a lot. That was the introduction one, Kieran.
Yeah.
So how to proceed from here?
Well, there's a number of various points raised. To more specifically to Harry's point. Yes, of course. These conglomerates, 80% of the Fortune 100 companies in 1980 are no longer in the Fortune 100. So 80% of Fortune 100 companies in 1980 are no longer in the Fortune 100. Big, Inditex, Zara, have completely and utterly creamed the traditional high street retailers right across Europe. So Inditex, Zara is a new brand. Dell. You're talking about brands are beginning to arrive into the market now and dominate verticals that are 50, 60, 100 years old simply on the basis of supply chain, on nothing else. They don't compete brand to brand, they compete in supply chain. I agree with you. I agree with you that you have people talking out of the two sides of their mouths. Yeah? Organizations which fail to link, organizations, no matter how big they are, which fail to grapple with matching supply chain with logistics. So this is the next part of the thing, is to try and make sure that your procurement people and your logistics people are working hand in hand, are talking out of two sides of their mouths. As you said, looking for extended storage time at your warehouse. The new PSA strategy is very interesting in Singapore. Singapore's marketing strategy this year is, you can store with us for as long as you like at no cost. That's their marketing strategy this year. We went to see them, that's what they're talking about. But I'm not so sure that that's going to be a situation that's going to survive. I don't believe those organizations are going to survive. I think that they're going to be very quickly overtaken by lean. We see it. This month's quarterly sales US automotive in the US. Every US automotive manufacturer is down 10. They don't have the systems that the Hyundais and the Toyotas have brought to bear. So you are at a turning point, I think, between best in class and laggards, and I think it's going to become more and more obvious. That's what I think about that point.
Well, Harry, I just wanted to confirm what Harry says. The issue of storage, discussed for times and times, and we have different strategies. Strategy at HHI is for the last couple of years to make it, to shorten 3 times and to make it more expensive. And the result is we make more cash. That's it. But no development in shortened dwell times. And so he's perfectly right. And there's a lot of things to be done to improve efficiency, which are definitely not under our control.
I just think, in reference to your comment, I think if it's me and my company moving goods through the supply chain, I want it all. I want to be able to move it fast and have reduced inventory, and I also want flexibility. All of a sudden goods aren't selling as well. If I can keep something halfway, I want to do it all, right? So I think that it's not just speed, it's everybody trying to get all that they can. And so that doesn't mean everybody can get all that they want because it'll congest it for other people. But from the cargo owner, he wants the supply chain to do everything that he wants it to do. Sometimes he needs to move it fast, and sometimes he needs to hold it up. So,
okay. So, but then I would see it. I mean, if there is a demand for storage too. I mean, both fast turnaround times, if desired, and storage capacity if desired. Then, of course, that should be a service that terminals should be able to offer.
Flexibility.
No.
I disagree totally. It should not be a service that the terminals offer. Right. Terminals are operational units. if they want to store, it should be outside.
Yes.
It should be outside. It should
Okay.
not be on the terminal. And that is where things go completely wrong. Because they start to use the terminals, and some will be using it as a selling argument. They start to use the terminals again. And I've seen this for 40 years, also on conventional facilities. They start to use them again as warehouses. They're not warehouses.
But why isn't that terminal by terminal? Why, if a terminal has space, Port of Portland has much space.
You give the wrong signal. You give the wrong signal because you say, oh, we have space now, we can take it. The minute that you don't have space, you're in deep trouble because you can't reverse. You can't go back and say, now I don't want them anymore.
Well, and Port of Portland, as an example, always has enough space. They're trying to draw as much cargo. I don't see how you can generalize that, because as long as you don't cause congestion,
Can I just point out that if you have that much space on your terminal, you're over-dimensioned your terminal?
maybe Port of Portland, for example, is eight hours
you
down
have
the
too
river.
much space.
They already have disadvantages.
Can I just say, if we were talking here about efficient use of resources, you're not going to put in, a very expensive quay wall, very expensive gantry cranes and everything, and then use it for storage. That is not what is meant. Because you don't use your gantry cranes, you don't use your quay wall just to store.
But are we here to take that decision? I mean, it seems to me the question is, what do you define as quality? I mean, you brought up the subject of productivity. Of course you have key points to measure the productivity of your terminals. Is that of interest to your customers? How productive you are? Probably not, they don't care.
It's not true. It's not
It
true.
depends on
You say things in that
who's the
generality.
customer.
It's not true.
So on the left-hand side of there is a customer who might be interested.
That's a different story. The customer's interested in the service that he gets. And the question is, how can we measure the quality of this service? And so it seems to me that the discussion might be going in the wrong direction. And actually, I would see it as your task to define what exactly the quality is that we're looking for. Except if we're looking for a standard that you would like to use internally for your terminals. But I don't think that this is why we came here.
I think the basic idea was, the basic idea was first the containerization will double. Second, this means we cannot double the terminal capacity. This means automatically that we need a high efficient terminal for the coverage of the doubling of the containerization. I think this was the starting of that story.
And that's one of the drivers.
Yeah, one of the drivers. Second driver, that there should be more connectivity, more visibility of what's being done directly towards the shipper side. That's how I understand.
I agree.
I would say that we try to just going back to, in a way, I would say definitely we all agree with you. If we are as a fuel terminal operator, the way we've been doing things in the last 40 years, I think there is nobody that can reach the scale that now most of us here have reached if we don't have those KPIs. And that thanks to a lot of effort, including Gustav's effort. Which we apply quite a lot of those, I would say, KPIs to all our terminals. And the ones that we acquired, that's definitely, previously to this job, I was in business development, that's the first things that we actually looked at. And, but I also agree with Steve that when we look at the new role of the terminal, based on the end user's perspective, forget about the terminal perspective, the port authority perspective, and the shipping line perspective. Just park it. I'm not saying this neglect that, but just saying park it there. Just look at it from the end user perspective. The global manufacturers, the top 20, the top 20. I've been spending a lot of time with these guys in the last 3 years, everywhere. I've been lucky enough to still keep my job because this is a sensitive nerve in the industry. But one thing we have actually understood, at least myself and part of the team that I formed together with other people in the group, is that there's no question the emergence of these mega shippers and mega 3PLs here in Europe, where Kieran mentioned 60,000 TEUs. That's mainly for the case of Europe. But then when you go to the US, you have the Walmarts of the world that go beyond 500,000 TEUs. Okay? The emergence of these companies actually, and the deregulation of the industry is shifting the attention not only from the quay side but also to the land side for the terminals, because of the volumes are growing and they tend to be concentrated. So yes, the shipper is looking at, I want to minimize my inventory cost, because ideally for them it will be, can I actually sell this bottle of water without having any cost of inventory? That's the idea. But at the same time, they don't want to miss the opportunity to sell that bottle of water. And with the supply chain getting longer, this is becoming more difficult to achieve. So we have talked to a lot of them, and what they have said to us, because we are concerned with them using our terminals warehouses, which in most of the case they use, and we don't like that obviously. The higher the density in the yard, the more costly it is for me to actually meet the KPIs of those I keep. So on the margin side, you know. So we struggle there because we know that the shipper wants to sometimes hold the cargo in the terminal, it's cheaper for them, but at the same time they also want to have the responsive, fast enough to get a cargo whenever they need to replace that bottle of water on the shelves. And the question here is, if we give them flexibility, if we then give them a button that they can actually push and say, okay, hold it there if you have the space, and yes, when it's there, I take it whenever I want and I can upgrade it, downgrade it to barge, trucks or rail. Is there any value then for them? Can they share that value with us? Because this is exceptional. This is a niche market that is emerging. And how do we tackle then that niche market? I agree with Gustav. We shouldn't actually encourage increasing the volumes close to the quay side. But if we have land available outside, away from the concentration of that valuable resources, which is the coast, can we hold up those stocks there? And if so, how will this change the nature of the business? Nobody has answered to these questions. But these are the things that I think we should be discussing, and how that actually will come into the benchmarking. Because there will be value. If you're a 5-star hotel and you give that value,
Yes.
how that value could actually be shared,
Yeah.
potentially will be some business case here.
Yeah.
I'd like to come back directly maybe to the very last sentence you were saying. I mean, if you are a business traveler like you are most of your life working time, I mean, whether you go to a 5-star hotel or a 4-star hotel, is for you usually completely besides the point. Because the 5-star hotel and the 4-star hotel may differ only in one point. They have a congress center.
Yes.
So whether you need that congress center or
Yeah.
not is completely besides the point.
Yeah.
You need a place to sleep, you need an IT connection, you need your service, you need some food, you need some breakfast, and you need peace. Am I correct?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
whether this is 4 or 5 stars, I mean a 5-star is just adding a ballroom. That's the normal thing in the US, the 5-star is adding a ballroom to the hotel. So if I'm on a business trip, I usually don't need a ballroom. So now coming back to your argument, the customer of my customer, what does he need?
Yeah, exactly.
Does he really get additional information by having a standard to measure worldwide terminals? I don't know. I want to learn. I really want to learn whether yeah or nay. Is it really necessary to measure the terminals on a worldwide basis? Does it add any information to the supply chain? Or is it a measure, if you allow me to say, do we want to measure the terminals in China, compare them? Do we want to measure the terminals in Northern Europe and see what the difference is? Because it doesn't make any sense to me for the supply chain to say you have the same productivity in Europe than in China. I mean, if your goods are produced in China, you have 2 ways or 3 ways to get them out. To fly it,
Yeah.
to get it by sea or by rail. To Europe, for instance. To the US, it's only 2 ways. So, I mean, it's useless to compare the 2 terminals. I mean, from a point of view to speed up the supply chain. Because you cannot send the container via Hamburg to Munich originating out of China. You have to get somewhere out of China. So from that point of view, I think we have to look into it, whether it makes sense to have a worldwide standard or a worldwide basic benchmarking. Yeah, maybe a standard, and then regionalize it. I'm not against that, don't misunderstand me. But what I'm trying to say is, because there are different factors into it. If you're looking, for instance, and I may add to this one, if you allow me as an audience, if you're looking into Europe and you're looking into Asia, I mean, the basic standards of operation are completely different. Because the culture is different. Culture means culture was at the end done in the port. So there could be a worldwide standard, yeah, no problem, and then regionalize it. And the question is, what is a region?
Correct.
If I'm comparing myself with my colleague and fierce competitor on the other side of the table here, I mean, if we are going to be compared with each other, I fully agree, I have no problem with that. Neither he has, I suppose. But if we are both going to be compared, Yantian and let's say Eurogate terms in Europe, I mean, it's a completely different story, if I may say that. So I would suggest that we are looking into...
It's geopolitical. Like Dr. Fu of China Merchant Holdings, 25, that's the whole... So the more you talk about it, it has to have a geopolitical idea. So the point is, however, yes, of course. So when we go to the Pearl River Delta, Sheku, Shiwan, or Yantian, okay, I'm not going to put Bremerhaven in there. I want to know, I'm manufacturing in Guangzhou, I'm sourcing there, I've got 3 terminals, I may even put Hong Kong in, I've got 4, 5, 7, 8 terminals. When I go to look at my benchmark, these are the 8 that I'm looking at. I'm not, so you naturally become regional in your adjudication, because when you're specifying, you're already regional in your adjudication. This is the specification tool.
But what is regional in this man?
In this
If
case,
you're talking
Pearl River
about,
Delta.
you say Pearl River.
Yeah.
I challenge you on that one. I challenge you. If the production is really in which distance to Pearl River? If it's 1,000 kilometers, it might not be the ideal port, Pearl River.
No.
So
But we'll still be in southern China, though.
It might be China. It might be China.
Yeah.
So if you regionalize, really one has to really spend some ideas on what is a region. I mean, we know this from our challenges we are having here in Europe, whether it is we are going to put together, let's say, Western Europe.
Yes.
How far? Including Rotterdam, Eindhoven. We are putting in the Eastern Europe, more Eastern Europe part, Hamburg, Bremerhaven, blah, 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 ports over here, or the whole region. Is it including UK? Is it excluding UK? Does it make sense to include UK? You know, I'm talking about that. So the point is, I mean, I'm that serious on that.
No, but I mean,
So the point is, if you want to develop for the supply chain certain standards and certain ideas and comparison, it has to make sense. And it is looking into this little part of the world called Europe, Northern Europe. It is difficult enough, I can tell you.
Yeah. But I guess, I mean, as far as I understand, I do not really see the need to regionalize the standard itself. So how to measure quality. There is a natural regionalization just because you simply cannot compare Bremerhaven with Yantian, because you can only compare ports within one region. I mean, you don't have any choice, as you already said. You cannot ship a container from China via Hamburg to Munich or something. You have to use a Chinese port before. So you only have the choice if you go to Europe. You only have the choice to unload your container somewhere in the in the north range or whatsoever. So you will always be in the situation that you can only compare or you want to compare only ports that are regional close together. Yeah? And then of course it depends on the location of the final destination or the guy who wants to compare the ports. But I don't think it's necessary, because once you start to talk about, let's say, differentiate the calculation of any KPIs by a region, then you get into the problem, like you already said. How do we define the regions? Yeah? What if you look at China? What's about Vietnam? What's about, and then you come from one country to the next, and you always will find out that that it's difficult to find the correct borders, or it's simply impossible probably.
So what you're saying is that the practicality of it is, can you have a standard in how that it's used and how somebody uses the end result is what's important.
Right. That's it.
And what I like to do is bring up a point, because it seems to be an issue of how we think about this. From what point of view is this being done?
Yes.
And the issue, I'll give you one point, right? And that is, on here we have moves per crane.
Mm-hmm.
That matters to a stevedore, to a terminal operator. The outside world doesn't matter. It matters how many moves did you do in that hour. I don't care how many cranes you put on. I want to know how fast you're going to get that ship out and keep it on schedule. It's not per crane, it's per hour. So, but that's two different viewpoints. One's terminal operator's viewpoint, the other is from the outside, the BCO, the Benefit Cargo Owner. So it's just, there's either a blending or we have to decide whose point of view are we looking at.
Yes.
Do you mind if I just show you something which I think might just, because in fairness, this is the job I have to do. I don't run a terminal or do anything like that, or I don't set standards, but I'm trying to make things very simple. Yeah? Just keep it simple, right? So what we're trying to say is, when you see this beside a hotel name, by simply seeing that, or if it's 5 stars, that is a symbol, says to you what?
It's expensive.
Okay.
Yes, a whole room.
It has a whole
It is the point.
Okay, but the reality is, right, it doesn't tell you, right, that the average plate is produced in the kitchen, right, in 4 minutes. It doesn't tell you that. Okay? However, you may decide when you look at 5 star that it is prompt. Yeah? So you may say to yourself, if I keep investigating, you say, well actually, Kieran, if you think about it, I know it's expensive, it's got a border, but one thing I would say to you is organizationally, it's going to be prompt. It's going to be quick. They're not going to make me stand around. They're going to respect the fact that I'm paying, time is money. If I go to a 5-star hotel, time is money. So I know it's prompt. They're only prompt because they can do a plate in 4 minutes. If they don't look after this KPI, now that KPI is not making its way to your perceived value there. But however, in order for them to continue to be prompt, they have to be productive. So the point is, just getting back to the original point, this is Steve's point. Steve's point is, this is what we're going to produce. Yeah, a logo like this. Yeah? What we have to determine is, when people go to your head office at Eurogate, as they're walking in the door, if they see that logo and they walk on in, yeah? If this is given to you, but if Comanche law would give you this, subject to an audit, if it's a shipping line walking through the door to you today, who is your customer, when he sees this, it reassures him that as a shipping line, that you are efficient on the quayside. If I walk in and I'm a shipper, I realize that you've got connectivity. It has to say different things to different people, and so it's a diamond. So we all pick up a diamond. It's a diamond to all of us, but we can all take a different view of it. What we're trying to suggest is, to get this, Comanche Lloyd have come up with an ingenious system, which is so simple. They go to get it. We're going to score you out of 100 points. And we call that nirvana. Utopia. Very hard to achieve. However, what we will say to you is, once you get to 70 points, we'll give you this. Now, all we simply have to do is to keep it simple, is to decide what is the universe of the 100 points. So let's be simple about it. 50 points for productivity, 50 points for connectivity. Maybe that's wrong now. Maybe that's wrong. I'm not suggesting to you these are the weights or measures.